Folks, thanks for joining. Definitely tell us where you're joining in from. I see we already got quite a few people here. Want to know where in the world are you? I'm excited to be here with Jess, who's graciously made the time for us. He's over at Microsoft AI. He's been leading that team there. Jess, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I hope everyone's feeling good after Halloween. We didn't overdo it too much at our house, but we have, 2 full bags of candy to get through.
I'm genuinely concerned about the children and the amount of candy that they have and how we're going to work our way through it. Because now I have 2 that are at the age that they want to consume chocolate, like really want to consume chocolate. And
what's your house policy?
We don't have one. We're just like parents who are just starting to figure it out. Like COVID made sure that there was very little trick or treating for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
And now I have to decide what is official policy going to be in the house. Jess, do you have any recommendations for me?
One is they have to give you all of your favorite candy. So that dad tax is.
I like that.
And dad tax exists. And then sometimes we'll time bound it. So we'll just say there's no rules for some amount of time. But then usually you can give it to charities or you can send it overseas to soldiers or stuff like that. So
I love that. We should definitely do that. I'm gonna take some of that. But we're not here to talk about Halloween candy, though I feel like we should. That should be another AMA is Jess's house policies on Halloween candy with the kids. But you are hiring for a super cool role. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about what this role is, why you're excited about it, and we'll kind of go from there. Folks, you can already drop questions in the chat if you have them about the role. So over to you, Jess. Tell us, what's this all about here?
Yeah, thanks, Alec. Yeah, so everybody, my name is Jess Holbrook. I lead user research for the Microsoft AI team. And that's a whole bunch of products at Microsoft that are all consumer facing. So it's things like Copilot, like Bing, like the Edge browser, MSN, all of our ads products. We're the Microsoft AI group, but it's almost easier to think of us as all of Microsoft's consumer products. And so I joined about 4 months ago, and we pulled all of research together. And so as we've been doing that, we've been kind of looking at what kind of team do we want to build and how do we want to expand and everything. And one thing we really want to invest in is more research on the Copilot experience. So if people haven't tried Copilot, we launched a big update a couple of weeks ago. I suggest you check it out. It's at copilot.microsoft.com. And so we're looking to put a few more people on that product. And we're looking for a couple different characteristics. One is location. So this is a tough one for some people, but it does need to be Bay Area. Since we're Microsoft, we have everyone's up in Seattle, Redmond, or in other locations. We actually want to increase the density down in the Bay Area. We're also really looking for folks with strong quant skills. So our team kind of did an analysis of the skills and what we have on the team and where we want to grow. And a big one was we want some more quant research. And then the third is that this will be an IC role, but at a higher level. So it's at the Microsoft principal level, which we have a couple roles, which kind of equates to staff, senior staff, or maybe low principal at other places. And part of that philosophy is something I've seen work really well at other companies I've worked at are really trying to recenter ICs and have high-level ICs who do not have management loads report into the function head and act as really just kind of highly autonomous, really strong performers. And that is a model I want to try to recreate at Microsoft. It's not very common at Microsoft yet, but we're starting to shift into that.
I wonder if maybe I can hop in here. And when you say quant skills, obviously there's a range of proficiency, right? You can be a hardcore data scientist. There's, I can make some graphs and do an ANOVA test, and I can do a chi-squared test, versus I can write a survey and I can do an average. Where along the spectrum of those quant skills are you ideally looking for?
Yeah, we're going to look closer over to the DS end of things. So this is one of the things when we talk to people, I like to just leave it really wide open and just to say, where do you land your quant skills? And so we're looking for somebody who is more comfortable, like writing code in like R or Python or something like that to go through logs analysis, who would be very comfortable doing like conjoint analyses or user segmentation studies or clustering or things like that on their own. Not so we talk to a lot of people, and this is a great skill to have, but they kind of say, I don't have the quant skills myself. I know how to partner really well, and that's great, and that's a thing we love, but that's not what we need for this particular role. And so, and then we talk to people who kind of say, hey, I can run a survey and do the descriptive statistics. And again, that's great, but that's not what we're looking for these particular roles.
Great. So we got some questions coming in already. I'm going to shout out Sarah and Megan. Megan one-upped Sarah's question, so we're going to prioritize this one right here. Quant is growing in demand. Any tips on how a qual-heavy UXR can get up to speed on Quant? What level of experience? Is it really experience? Is it really capabilities? Is there a different way of looking at it? But how are we getting up to speed on Quant, and what does success look like here?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, there's this spectrum of Quant to kind of go that the skills can range over. And so I think one of the things is just to locate where you are in that spectrum, and then really kind of maybe focus on like the adjacent thing to you versus trying to trying to tackle the whole thing all at once. I would also say one of the other parts I've seen fail is, like, I've personally tried to learn R multiple times, and it's never worked because it's never been mission critical for me. So I would really attach it. I would attach learning some quant. That's more like just learning a language, but to really attach it to a real project, not a kind of like toy project you're trying to work on or something like that. And then the third is, if you are around a quant heavy person or a data scientist, that's a thing where you could maybe get into a mentorship relationship or start to learn from them directly. And then I'll make one extra plug. Chris Chapman, who is an excellent quantitative UX researcher, and I was lucky enough, he was one of my kind of first bosses and mentors in my career, just recently kind of stepped away from industry, but he's been doing a newsletter on quant UX. I can find that in the background if we want the name of it.
Yeah. Do you mind?
Yeah.
I'll tell some jokes and entertain or something.
Yeah, no, I'm
definitely not going to tell any jokes. That's dangerous.
I'm in the thing of I'm in the other window here.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's definitely get that in.
I'm here. Okay, cool. I already found it. So
please tell some dad jokes. Well, oh no, I will come prepared next time, Megan. I appreciate the shout out here. Yeah, Devin also is one-upping. Okay, thanks for sharing. Devin also agrees that that's a great resource. Speaking of Devin had a great question too. So, ideal background, specifically education for a role like this. How are you kind of evaluating essentially the CVs that you're getting?
Yeah, we're not, I've never been really like a credential snob or anything like that. Like I don't really care about the PhD or not or anything like that. I've just been around long enough where I've seen people are just effective in very different ways. I actually think one of the strengths of UX research is that we come from so many different backgrounds. And so education, it's kind of funny, like it almost doesn't matter relative to experience. If you have a lot of experience. So a lot of times, I guess a way to think about it is, looking at any resume or any portfolio or anything like that, the hiring manager is just looking for a signal of some kind about how you might do in the job. And so if you're early in your career, we're going to probably rely more on education because that's just a stronger signal that we have, even though it's a pretty bad one. But later in your career, it's like, I don't really care. If you're 20 years in, it's like, I don't really care where you went to school at that point. Like you have so much more signal later on. So to me, I weight work experience and, have you proven you can do important, interesting things in a work environment more than education.
Well, I love that. I think that's great. I will also say, and there are some LinkedIn feuds about this recently, but like a really high proportion of a lot of the sort of like, leaders in the research space these days did not get that kind of graduate degree necessarily, which I think is interesting, as people are reflecting on that. Jess, you still there? Okay, it is dad joke time after all. Okay, just kidding. Can't do any jokes on the spot. Okay. What I think we should talk about in the meantime, I think one of the things that I've seen a lot about and have talked to a lot of hiring managers about recently around experience is the idea of doing projects just outside of a particular work role that you may have as an incredibly strong signal that tells you a few different things to hiring managers. So one is it tells hiring managers that you're really excited about the work. Two is it actually gives you the chance to show capabilities and what they are. Welcome back, Jess. I'm improvising a little bit.
I have no idea what that was. Sorry about that.
That's okay. This is technology, the age of technology we're in, and we still, the Zooms and the webinars. We'll never. I think we'll have robot like flying cars. I think we'll have AIs embedded in our entire lives, and we'll still be like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?"
When the pandemic hit, I kind of looked to the CSCW community, the computer supported cooperative work, and it was like, all right, guys, it's your time to shine. What do we do? What do we do? And it's kind of like, we're kind of screwed. It's not really work very well for everybody. It's like, okay, I love it. All right, here we go.
Picking up on what I was kind of riffing on before, can you think of any examples of, people that you've hired where there was some part of the experience outside of the official jobs that they've done where you saw something and you were like, oh man, I really got to work with you. Like, I love the energy. I love what you're doing. I love this side project or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that, there's, we have a thing, a life philosophy, and it's, so I have two daughters, 13 and 11, and it's fun. I'll relate this back, I swear, but they'll kind of they'll see something, online or whatever, and they'll kind of make fun of it. And we have a rule in our house of you respect the makers. Even if you don't like something, you respect the fact that somebody went out and made something, because that takes way more guts and way more energy and way more everything than criticizing it, right? And so it's it may not be for you, but you respect the makers. So I always respect the makers. So if I go to somebody's site or portfolio or something and they're like, here's this thing I made or created or passion, that for me helps a lot. It's not a requirement by any means, but it's oh, can I see, one of the things I'm looking for to relate that to something a little bit more tangible in the interview process is people a lot of times ask, what are you looking for in a candidate? And if it comes down to one thing, I'm looking for a point of view. I'm looking for how do you see the world, and how would that point of view help us and our team, and eventually the people who use our products make their lives better. But a lot of times I'll see a candidate and it's I don't know what your point of view is on anything, and I think this is kind of the hard part, because a lot of times I get this, when I was early in my career, I would have been, they're what kind of position are you looking for? I've been anything, let me in the door. That's all I want.
So true.
But it's actually kind of not a really good approach, because there's no point of view there, and whatever, you don't have enough experience yet. But then I also think one of the hard things there is you have to really have to watch out for similarity biases, right? So stuff that's not really job function related is I might see somebody and they might, I see some matched life pattern between me and them. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. But it's yeah, but that has nothing to do with the job. So, it's you can hang out with them outside of work, but that doesn't mean you need to.
100%. I like this point of view piece. I feel like we should double click on it a little bit. Yeah. Maybe so you're a senior leader, manager, whatever. Can you talk a bit about why that stuff is actually important to you? Because I think it's not entirely obvious why having people with strong points of view or help, especially different strong points of view. Obviously you don't want massive conflict on the team, but having strong differing points of view or ways of looking at problems. How is that actually helpful to you and the people you work with when you have something like that versus somebody who's sort of towing the line a little bit more or who doesn't have that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so the nature of almost all of our jobs is everything we're doing is happening. I mean, this sounds kind of funny, but everything we're doing is happening for the first time. And at any given moment, I like to say, one of my favorite like little isms is action is information. And another way to look at it is we're always as dumb as we're ever going to be at any given moment. Because if we're doing our job right, we're learning things and we're acting and we're doing research and we're increasing our knowledge. And so we're encountering novel problems constantly. Like none of our job is do the thing that somebody's done before, solve the problem a second time. Like all we do is solve problems for the first time. And so with that, you're just trying to collect as much, I wouldn't even say information, but like organized information as you can. And a point of view is a way to kind of organize information into a trajectory. So stuff has happened. What do we think it is and where do we think it's going? And so that can help a lot. And then the thing that you have to match that with, and this is a discipline I've been working on. I'm going to work on it my whole life, but I've been really focusing on it, is I play a game and the game is how long can you stay curious? And I see how far I can push myself. And so even when somebody says a point of view, I'm a human being, so I'll have a gut reaction like what? Like, what are you talking about? Or whatever. But it's how long can you stay curious about that person's perspective and point of view and really understand the way that they're organizing information, where they see where we are and where they see where we can go. And when you start to pull a lot of those together, then you start to, I've heard it called it's like when you do a lit review, it's like when you're done with a lit review is when you meet yourself on the other side. It's kind of like you followed all the sources and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, they're leading back to the other sources I had. Okay, now I know I've kind of got it. It's a little bit like that of like, okay, I'm having all these points of view and now I'm able to kind of see where they're connecting and where they're going to bump into each other. And then we hit a point where it's time to go and make a decision.
Can you talk about how you developed whatever your points of view are that are kind of like, if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who'd be applying for this role, I know you have strong points of view on certain things. Like, how did those develop for you?
I mean, a lot of like having bad ideas and then finding out I was wrong is a lot of it. I mean, I meant that half as a joke, but half not. I mean, like I did lots of stuff I thought was really good ideas, especially early in my career, that were not. And so you learn that lesson and then
it's a rite of passage. It has to be.
Yeah.
Right?
And hopefully you get a chance to prove that you learned that lesson. I will also say I was lucky enough to have managers and mentors who gave me space, to learn those lessons and to prove that I learned those lessons and to move on from them. And then I think there is just a ton of pattern matching. You see things over and over, and I'm now here, and I've been in research management roles now for long enough where it is funny because people come up and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling with this right now. And I'm like, oh, conversation 87. Okay. I know this one, and somebody comes up and they're like, I just don't know what to do here. And you're like, oh, it's conversation 43. Okay. Yeah, I got it. So there's a little bit of that pattern matching. And then I am a believer though, too, of like everyone has some just natural predispositions, in kind of how they orient their work. And, it can be your big five, or it can be your, colors or whatever your preferred thing is. But I tend to score very high on the, like see the abstract pattern in things, markers there. So there's probably just some random thing that stuff pops out to me.
I love that. Yeah. Praveen, coming in with the GOAT question. I feel like we should have this on every one of these, yeah. Which is, what does a 30, 60, 90 look like for this hire? I feel like this is such a great question. Yeah, Praveen, you got to come to all of our AMAs and just ask this question over and over again. I like this. Jess, what do we got here?
It really is good. Like, it's a great question because it's kind of, it just makes it so crunchy, right? Like we can talk about all this abstract stuff and like what's happening, blah, blah, blah. 30, 60, 90. So the way that this group works is we run in, this group in particular runs in what are called cycles. And cycles are 6-week increments of work. Might be 6 to 7 weeks. And so we meet up before and after each of them. We do retros and we do planning for the next one. And then we kind of like decide what we're going to do. I gave you that context to say it kind of would depend on where the person landed where the person landed in that cycle. But like we're going to, I say like this group is a river, and like you're going to hop in the river and the river will take you along. So, you know, the first 30 is going to be a lot of the usual stuff. It's like, here, get to know people, get set up on the equipment, all that stuff. But like, you'll probably be doing a research project, you know, your second or third week, you'd probably be getting something set up. Like, that's what this group is. It's like a faster moving group. There's other groups where it might be like, no, your job is just to talk to people and learn for like, you know, 30 days, 60 days or something like this. But this one will be more like, no, you'll probably pick up a research project within the first couple of weeks and get rolling. Within the first 60, you'll have been through at least one cycle. You'll have gone to these meetups, which is where like hundreds of people descend on either Seattle or San Francisco. And you'll have met a ton of the team. And you'll have gone through kind of a whole cycle. So you'll be like, oh, okay, I screwed that thing up. I did this thing really well. I need to go talk to this person. And then by day 90, you know, you'll almost be a veteran on this team and just be rolling with everybody. But then also probably connecting the work back to the other parts of our team as well, beyond Copilot.
That's great. Another great question. I think this is one I've always wondered about myself. And so thank you, Megan, for asking this, which is the classic end of the interview comes round. We're both getting to know each other a little bit. And the interviewer says, do you have any questions for me? And every candidate goes, I better have a really good question for you,
right? Because
I don't want to seem disinterested in the role. Jess, what do we do about this situation? What do you want to hear from us, damn it?
Yeah, no, excellent question. I think that way more managers want to be challenged or surprised at that point than any candidate thinks they do. And a lot of candidates ask the super softball kind of question, or like the super vague, like, tell me about the team. And like, that's fine. That's not minus any points, but it's not plus any points either. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll tell you about the team or whatever.
Do you have an example of one that like really exemplified this for you, where you're like, oh, damn, wow, this person's really thinking?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a specific one isn't coming to mind, but like if I can, you know, just some that are popping into my head is like, I don't know, I'm just like, what would I like if somebody asked me, you know, I like ones if somebody said something like, what was the best day out of your last month on the job and what was the worst day? You know, like I want them to like get at the reality of the job. Or if somebody asked and they said, you know, I like to ask, this is one I've asked in interviews, is, you know, a big one is like, it's a year from now. How do we know this was if I got the role, how would we know it was a really good decision? And how would we know it wasn't a good decision? And it's a bit of like playing with that tension there a lot more. Again, there's a point of view part where like I said, like it could be a total just random wildcard question, but if it reveals a point of view that I wasn't expecting, I'll love that, right? You know, it might be like, well, how do you think AI relates to blah, 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 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's really good. You know, I haven't thought about that. And so, yeah, a little bit of like, don't be afraid to like put a little tension in the room with the question.
We're looking for the edge. We want a little edge in that question. It sounds like,
because like this gets back to the point of view thing. Like I'm trying to understand who you are.
Yeah.
And if you ask me a generic softball chat GPT question, like I have no idea. But it's true. I have no idea who you are at that point. So
that's a really good litmus test. I feel like for this thing is like, would this be one of Chat GPT's top 5 to 10 questions to ask in an interview? Yeah. If it is, it's a bad question. Don't do it. You know, can I throw one to you? I'd love to know how you respond to it. So if knowing what you told me now, if I was interviewing with you and get to that point where you're like, do you have any questions for me? How would you respond? And this may be way too much edge, so I'm putting the ball in your court. But I have not asked this before, but I've thought it before in an interview, which is, why are we even doing this? Like, why are you hiring me? Why are we working on this? Why do we care?
Oh, I love that. I always tell people, like, be careful taking my advice on any of this, because I found I have a different point of view than a lot of people. But like,
right.
Oh, I would love the push on the why, because one is, I think it's the right question to ask. I mean, that's honestly 60-70% of my job is I just go around everywhere and ask people, why are we doing what we're doing? To make sure we have like really good reasons for why we're doing what we're doing. So yeah, I would love, or like, some version of that, or like, what would happen if you can't hire for this role, or something. But yeah, I love the why. I also like it because it shows somebody's caring about their experience. Like, they're prioritizing not themselves in a selfish way, but also not themselves in a like, I have no value way. You're kind of trying to find that balance.
We only got one life to live. And as I like to say, I remember having conversations with my wife about this when she flipped it back on me when I was having a hard time at a job, but I put it to her when she was having a hard time at a job to get her to leave. And then she did it back to me like 6 months later. But I say every quarter is 0.5% of your working life. So do you want to give this job another quarter? You want to give them, you only get 200 0.5%. Like, that's it. That's it. That's your entire life. So you want to give them another one or no?
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that? Yeah. That's fun.
That's good. You should make that a post or something. You could.
Okay. I'll see if I'll turn it into a blog.
Big engagement. Yeah.
I'll tag you in it. Cool. I think we have time for one more question. I think, Praveen, you've already proven yourself with your quality of questions. So we're going to just, I'm not even looking at it. We're going to throw it up there. What kind of impact can somebody potentially create through this role? What value do they get to create for Microsoft, its customers, and the community and society at large?
Yeah, I think it's pretty huge. We just redid Copilot. And so again, I think you should check it out. We have a different perspective than a lot of other groups are having, really leaning way more into the companionship use cases. These can be controversial. Not everybody backs them. Some people actually really don't like them, and for very good reasons. But given a lot of the interactions and data and internal stuff that I've seen, I think that this is where these really trend. So I think that there's a huge potential for people in the many of your traditional productivity use cases, but we're going to explore new use cases where AI and AI agents can actually help people in all different aspects of their lives. And we got to do that in a very responsible way, in a very careful way, in a respectful way. And I think that we are doing that. And I think that we're going to uphold that. The value we're going to create for Microsoft is, I always say, I want my team working on things that are Microsoft-sized businesses. So, what our total
that's revenue, a big one.
Well, it's I
like that.
Total revenue was over 220 last year or something like that. And it's we should be working on things that change that number in a meaningful way. And that's really big. And then with customers, with Microsoft, you have scale. And so if we can achieve scale, we have platforms, we have distribution, we have ways to achieve scale. I think it's also fun because I've been talking with everybody at Microsoft. You also have, this distribution. And so a lot of people, they aren't used to having to be chosen. And so I'm trying to get people used to the idea of no, our products need to get chosen people have options. They can do whatever they want. How do we get picked out of all of them? And then, the UR community and society at large. Again, it's kind of one of the benefits. I've worked for big companies, and one of the benefits of big companies is they come with a platform for people to hear what you have to say. I don't undervalue that at all. The fact that anybody wants to hear anything from me is in a lot of ways tied to the fact that I've worked places where people want to hear from people from those places. So that's really advantageous. And so being at Microsoft is one of the ways you can do that. And then society at large, I don't know, it's too big, man. Everyone always wants to talk about society.
Punt.
I'm too big.
See ya. I love it. I don't know if you heard this, but not so long ago, Facebook or Meta, I guess, sunsetted their workplace product. I don't know if you know about this.
I was there. I was there when it happened. Yeah, when the announcement came out.
It had like $400 million in ARR or something like that, like some obscene, this is an amount of revenue that every startup dreams of achieving. And they're just like, this really doesn't move the needle for us. So that really speaks to the size of the ambition that these projects have, which is, I think, just really cool and pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think I deeply respect about Meta is they have no sunk costs. Like if something does not align with the future, it's an easy decision for them. And that is not, and I'm unaware of any other company near their size that has that discipline.
I love that.
Yeah.
Jess, you've given us a ton of amazing insight. I know there's a lot of people who couldn't be here live that are going to be excited to watch the recording. Cool. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone, thank you so much for your questions. These were excellent questions. And hopefully next time you're hiring, we can get you back, Jess, because I'm sure everyone would love to hear from you again.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the questions, everybody. They were really good.
Cool. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.